The road to leadership is never a straight line. On this podcast, I'm interviewing the world's most interesting leaders about their mountaintop moments, their stumbling blocks, and everything in between. I'm Jonathan Block, and this is Stumbling Blocks, How Great Leaders Are Made. Welcome to The Stumble. My guest today is Brent Beshore, CEO of Permanent Equity, a private equity firm with 16 portfolio companies, $400 million in annual revenue, $50 million in free cash flow, and no debt. But as you'll soon see, Brent is the most un-private equity-like CEO I have ever encountered. Before Brent joins, let's visit the mailbag. Jordana from Detroit wrote on LinkedIn and inspired me simply to call the podcast The Stumble. Tina Clanton in Dallas wrote to say that she enjoyed hearing her former colleague at Southwest Airlines, Linda Rutherford. On Apple Podcast, Manila listener left this review. I've loved adding this podcast to my commute rotation. So if you haven't yet, please follow, rate the show, leave a comment, and if it's worthy of their time, pass it along to a friend who might enjoy it as well. And now I'm joined by Brent Beshore. Brent, thanks a million for joining the show today. I really appreciate it. You are CEO of Permanent Equity, which is a private equity holding company, but is perhaps the least private equity-like company I've ever encountered in my couple decades here of doing business. And so I wanted to have the chance to learn from you and from my listeners to learn from you about what it is that makes you tick and what it is that makes you different and therefore Permanent Equity so different. And what I like to do is, Brent, is sort of start with just what Permanent Equity is and its sort of financial outcomes, and then go back in time to who you are and your life story. So if we can start there, can you just tell us about Permanent Equity, what it is, what you own, and so on?
Yeah, Permanent Equity. So we're technically a private equity firm. We buy equity in private companies, but what private equity typically means and what we do is quite different. So most private equity firms use what we call the buy, lever, strip, and flip model. So they buy with an eye towards selling the business. They're usually going to hold it for maybe 2 to 5 years at most. And we can talk about why that is, but it makes complete sense when you understand how their capital is structured. They're going to use quite a bit of debt, pretty much as much debt as they can, they would say responsibly use, and kind of pushing the boundaries on what does responsible mean. And this is just for the same reason why you would use debt to buy a house, right? If you were thinking about buying a house and then maybe living in it for a couple of years and selling it, and you think the market's going to appreciate and you could sell the house for more, then you want to use as much debt as you can, put as little equity in as you can. And it makes that investment worth a lot whenever you go to sell it, right? They're typically going to try to cut costs out of the business. They're going to try to make it as efficient as possible. They are going to probably try to grow the business as well, probably maybe add some other businesses. It's called tack-on or bolt-on acquisitions. And then they're going to sell it within a fairly short period of time. So it's a high pressure. It's more short-term oriented. And look, it's worked. So I mean, I'm not here to bag on traditional private equity. I mean, if it depends on your definition of working, but it has made a lot of money for a lot of people. And I think they have, if you look at the industry generally and the studies that have been done, there's always the outliers that have been called attention to with, they blow up companies and create distress because of the debt and the timelines and those things. But there's a lot of businesses out there that the private equity's done great things with, and they serve their customers well. And so,
but they do have a reputation for being. I mean, if a friend's firm gets bought by private equity, you
congratulate your friend.
You can, if they're the owner, you congratulate them. But if they work for the firm as a W-2 employee, you kind of give them a little sympathy and say, like, honestly, I've said before to people, like, I'm really sorry. So private equity has as you've said, created tremendous wealth for people, but also has a fairly not a great reputation.
That is correct. What I would say is that the model addresses the two of the stakeholders and not all of the stakeholders in a business, right? So traditionally, private equity serves the seller very well and the buyer very well. If you think about the stakeholder group being much larger than that, though, it being the executives at the firm, the employee base, the community, larger community around these businesses, Think about the customers, the suppliers, potentially even regulators. None of those people are typically served by, again, whether it's private equity or not, by levering up the business, having a very short-term mentality, and then trying to sell it within a very short period of time. So everything that is about traditional private equity is kind of the inverse with permanent equity. So we buy with no intention of selling the business. We typically use no debt in our and we're not into cost cutting. We're into trying to grow the business long term and really develop meaningful relationships. We're trying to be thoughtful towards all the stakeholder groups and try to win together. It's very much the way we think about it. The way that kind of helped originate the model was just the first principles of how did families get rich? Like how did, if you look at a successful family, right? All big businesses started as small businesses, and all big businesses started as family businesses, right? Somebody founded the business, a family ran it. And, I'm not aware of a family. In fact, I've never seen it in my entire career, a family who's done well by levering up their business and trying to sell it to somebody else quickly. Like what does well for a family is to own the business for generations and build brick by brick, to be conservative in the financials, to be able to withstand the inevitable shocks that will come. The future is unknown and unknowable, but we know for sure that there will be unexpected curveballs. And I can talk about my career, how I've seen that, and I'm really grateful for the model that we have. And then maybe just taking a step back from that, what's the lifestyle you want to live? Do you want to be somebody who is promoting a lifestyle of workaholism and maniacal focus on making money as the only thing? And I know this is weird coming from a guy in private equity. I mean, we're
it is very strange from a guy in private equity. Yes.
But my argument would actually be, and I've seen this play out. Permanent equity, I can't talk publicly about our return profile because we get really in big trouble. But I can say is like our return profile has been very, very top end of what private equity typically puts up in returns. And we've done it unlevered, which is basically unheard of. So without using debt. And my argument would be that by treating people really well and by having a long-term mindset and by not using debt, and we can talk about how this actually plays out in the companies, you actually do better. You not only live a better life, but I think you have a better outcome, and you have a better probabilistic outcome. I think if you took our model and were able to replicate it, and we can talk about the hurdles to maybe creating, the model outside of what we've done, but my guess is that I think probabilistically it would have a lot better shot at doing well than a traditional private equity firm, how it's structured. So, look, I think God created the grain to the universe. I think if you go with that grain, I think that the odds are that you're going to do far better, and you're going to live a lot better life in the process.
So can you tell us just a little bit about the number of companies that Permanent Equity now owns? Just a little bit, just get us into the portfolio a tiny bit, and then we'll get to you.
Yeah, so we have 16 companies. We're really coast to coast. So we have businesses that sell outside the United States, but all of our businesses are headquartered in the United States and do, I would say, primarily activity in the United States. We're in everything from military recruitment to children's clothing to construction to manufacturing. Kind of everything in the middle. We've got service-based businesses, we've got product-based businesses, and we're really across the country. So it's pretty diverse. We're looking for businesses that are typically, call it $4 or $5 million of free cash flow on the low end, up to $15, $20 million of cash flow on the high end. So these are legit businesses. When we say small businesses, I think definitions matter. Most people think small business, they think of like the local bagel shop or something like that. Which, by the way, awesome. I'm really glad it exists. I like bagels. So that's nothing, it's not pejorative in any way. It's just, we're not talking about that. We're talking about probably, if we were talking about bagels, we'd be talking about like a chain of bagel shops, right?
Sure.
So these are more scaled businesses. They're I would say our sweet spot is finding businesses that are really good at what they do, and they're maybe not the best at the business of business. So there's kind of an everything tastes like chicken layer. Doesn't matter kind of what you're doing or how you're doing it. You're going to need to do marketing and sales and financial management and accounting and compliance and and tax and technology improvements. I mean, there's just this layer kind of on top that doesn't matter what you do, you got to be able to do the same thing. So we specialize in that. We want to partner with people who are really good at what they do, serving their customers. They've got a great culture. They would be successful without us. So we don't do turnarounds. We're not trying to come in and transform a business. Certainly as we're exploring the business, doing our diligence on the business, we've got some ideas about, maybe things that we've seen. I mean, one of the unusual positions we're in is that, we have this diverse portfolio. We've seen a lot. We've been at this for 15 plus years. It's a nice position to be in, that we've seen a lot what works and what doesn't. And so we're able to come to companies and say, hey, I know you've been doing this for a really long time this way. Have you thought about maybe adding this? And oftentimes they'll say, yeah, of course, it just doesn't work. I'm like, okay, great, no problem, right? We're not forcing the decision-making down into the business. These are independently run companies. They have their own independently staffed executive team, and they're responsible and compensated for the business. We're here to be supportive. We're here to gather resources and hopefully deliver to them. And really just be a kind, generous, long-term owner is what we aspire to be. And by the way, we screw up a lot. We have to say sorry all the time, and we're not perfect by any means, but we're pointing in that direction. We're trying.
So to describe yourself as hoping to be a kind and generous owner, again, is just totally counter to the prevailing culture of private equity. And so I want to learn about you as a leader. To do that, I want to just read a quick quote from your 2023 annual letter that's posted on Permanent Equity's website, and that you send to all of your investors and to other folks in the community. And it says, in part, you say this: I can distinctly remember times in my life when I was shocked by someone's love. It carries with it an aroma so strong it's impossible to forget. It's sacrificial and abundant and unconcerned with the self. It wants the best for you, no matter what you offer in return. It comes from a place of relationship, connectivity, and care. If all of this sounds foreign, squishy, and confusing, I get it. And then you go on. And you also, of course, talk about your businesses and about how well their financial performance. So there's, the business side of the report, but there's also this very human side. And so, Brent, if you could, long before you were CEO, tell us about you. Where did you grow up? Who influenced you growing up? What was your family like, your parents? So on.
Yeah, I grew up in Joplin, Missouri. So my family's been down there for, I think, 9 generations, traced back to the early to mid 1800s. And my dad worked at the same company for almost 40 years. He was an executive, but he was kind of in government relations, government sales. So a lot of things in government, like kind of lobbying work. So I grew up, we had a house that there was always kind of politicians coming through, and I got to see way too much at way too young of an age. I learned how to bartend, I think, when I was like 8 or 9. Which
are you making that up? Are you making that up?
No, I used to help out, and finally my parents, I was good enough at it that my parents just wouldn't hire the bartender and save money, and just I'd mix drinks. So child labor is a real thing down in South Dakota. And then my mom was a college professor, so she taught special education, did some work in a variety of different colleges, and so I grew up, I would say kind of middle-ish class. I can remember. I actually haven't talked about this publicly very much, but might as well. I can remember I got home one day from, I think I was in 4th grade, and a kid called me a rich kid. And we lived in like a 1,600 square foot slab home in Joplin, Missouri. My parents drove 10-year-old cars, and you're I don't know what, let's see, 4th grade's 10 years old. Yeah. You're not really self-aware. How does money work? What does it mean to be a rich kid? And so I came home and I asked my parents, I was like, are we rich? And she said, well, no, we're not. But your grandfather is. And I said, oh, well, that's interesting. So my family history is very weird. My great grandfather invented the bed spring, and front wheel drive for the automobile, and the clay pigeon thrower, and kind of all these crazy inventions. This is in the mid to late 1800s. And then he and his cousin started a firm called Leggett and Platt that ended up becoming, like, I would say, a moderately successful regional firm, manufacturing firm in the bedding space, kind of into the 30s and 40s. And then my grandfather did actually a hostile takeover. So the company had gone out of family control and actually did a hostile takeover of the family business.
No kidding. He took it back from the public.
Yeah.
From his owners.
And anyway, it's really, really fascinating. He's a very dynamic guy. But anyway, he grew the business from, I want to say it was $2.8 million of revenue in 1958. And when he retired in 1999, it had been a Fortune 500 company. So it was a $4 billion Fortune 500 company. Now,
impressive.
Stories are always, you can extrapolate a lot from that may be true and some things that may not be true. It was interesting. I kind of grew up on the cusp of, the money was never ours. It was his. And there's always, complicated family dynamics, which, I'm not going to go into publicly, but,
Sure.
it was an interesting, I kind of felt like I straddled two worlds, right? I straddled the world of, whenever I was with him, whenever I saw him, it was, Fortune 500 CEO, there was corporate jets, there was, a lifestyle there. And then, my parents, we lived, fairly modestly. I mean, we ended up moving into a bigger house as I got to be a teenager, but, anyway, so it was interesting for what I do for a living. I think that God, gives us unique talents and abilities and then puts us into environments to hone and shape us. And so, what I do for a living is I got to be able to play up and I got to be able to play down. Right. And growing up in Joplin, like my good friends were, teachers, kids. And I mean, It's not like I hung out with, aristocrats. I was just like a normal kid who liked to play sports in Joplin, Missouri. And that, sort of, I got exposed to that world. And so whenever I, go and meet a lot of the people that we, the sellers and the teams are blue collar, and middle class. And I mean, that's great. Like those are my people. Like that's who I very much vibe with. I also got exposed to, as I got older, to world of luxury and planes and all that stuff, and got to have kind of a foot in that world. It was never my world, but it was like a world that I got pulled into. And so when I went to raise capital in 2016, 2017, and I'm in Greenwich, Connecticut, and you can relate to those people too. Maybe not quite as well, but at least play up and play down. So it's interesting how God gives us these experiences. And I'm almost 43. It's like to reflect back on kind of how I'm really grateful for kind of being able to have those experiences in my life. I would say the thing that, you asked me kind of what my upbringing was like. I mean, I from a very early age, figured out that if I performed well, if I won awards, if I, won the prize, if I did well, life would go better for me. And I saw in my grandfather somebody who, he always lived within a fairly short walk of where I lived, but I wasn't able to see him a whole lot. Like I only saw him probably 3 or 4 times a year. There's always a longing, right, to see him, but he was doing deals and building a big business. And look, do I wish that he had made some different choices than he did? Absolutely. As I get older, it's complicated, right? And I think that we can learn a lot from the people, to eat the fish and spit out the bones and see, it's good to see how different things play out. And so, one of the things that I saw in him was it seemed like, he had a lot of power and he had a lot of authority. And it seemed like that being successful in business and really just being successful in general, whatever the game you're playing, seems to be the way to do well in this world. And so that got etched in my heart very early. And I basically spent my, my childhood and into my teens and 20s just trying to win games. That would be the way I would describe it. So, when you're younger,
what does that mean?
Sports is, I would say, when I was younger, sports was the game, right? So it was like, be as good at sports as you possibly could and excelled in some sports and did well. I mean, nothing crazy, but just, try to, whatever environment you're in, you try to win. As you get into, as girls start to matter, that's another game. And, trying to do well with the lady folk, became a game. Grades become something that matters, how you score on the SAT and, what college you go to, and then you get to college and what are the games there and how do you perform there and what societies are you involved in and do you join a fraternity? And then, I joined a fraternity and it's like, into leadership of the fraternity. Do you, lead on campus in different organizations? Do you, just it's all the games, right? And then I went and went to law and MBA and, how do you perform there? What are the rewards for being in the top, of your law school class? What are the rewards for, having good grades and networking in the MBA program, and then you get into starting a business, which is my trajectory, and there's rewards there for not failing, and trying to win in business. And so I would say it kind of led up for me. It was the same story, no matter what. The game's changed, and and the consequences changed, right? As you get older, there's more, there's different types of rewards and more risk to the games you're playing. And I would say as though that through my 20s and really into my late 20s, I was maniacally focused on winning. And winning looked like building the biggest bank account and having awards and being around famous people and all the prestige games. And man, I found myself in my late 20s just hollowed out, empty.
So if you look where are you in your late 20s? Just kind of give us a picture of where you are in that moment.
Yeah. So in my late 20s, I can remember I was 28 years old. That was the first year I made over $1 million, like paid taxes on over $1 million. I'd started a couple of companies, series of companies, and then had bought a business for the first time. Did real well with that. And we were 28th on the Inc. 500, fastest growing company in Missouri history. I was getting invited to the Obama White House to advise on economic and entrepreneurship policy. I started getting invited to all the kind of national groups of entrepreneurs and kind of high growth type people, and met some really, really cool people.
Cool kids clubs.
It was the cool kids club. I mean, and by the way, like I wasn't always in the cool kids club, so it felt really good. And also I've gotten into the clubs and I realized like all these people are kind of messed up as I am. I actually think there's something that's interesting. Like most normal humans don't maniacally focus on winning at the cost of everything else because they realize that's really stupid. Like, normal humans have these like safeguards that I think kick in, and reasonability kicks in, and they're like, okay, this is dumb. I'm hurting myself. I'm hurting people around me. I need to stop. I need to pull back. I think people who have wounds, for regardless of the cause of the wounding, and I certainly did have wounding. And that's part of my story is, from that wounding and from that hurt, I think it drives you out into the world to try to prove that, you are somebody, right? And to try to earn affection, to try to earn your place in the world, to compete. And so I drove myself really, really hard to the detriment of my marriage. I got married when I was 25. By my late 20s, my marriage was on the rocks. We talked a lot about getting divorced. She didn't like me very much. I didn't like her very much. We didn't have any kids, and it was messy. I mean, I can remember kind of everything just tasted gray. You have all this money, you can go and do anything. I mean, I remember, this is gonna sound funny, but this is like a good picture of like, wealth is all relative, right? Like I thought I was the richest person in the world when I was 28 because I could fly anywhere I wanted anytime on Southwest Airlines. Like that was in my head. That was the pinnacle of success. Yeah. And so, it was like, what do you do with all this freedom? What do you do with all this power and authority and money and all these things? And for me, it hollowed me out, and I kind of got to the mountaintop and realized like I'd been climbing the wrong mountain. And anyway, that's part of my faith journey too. So I was a hardcore atheist in my 20s. And that was the moment that I started being surrounded by all these people who were kind and generous and gentle and had a peace that I didn't have. And I was like, what do you have that I don't? And they were like, oh, I follow
because at the
Jesus.
time you think you have everything, right? Like you think
you have everything, but you're more than everybody. I mean, I won, and I realized I lost. I was, playing the wrong game. And so anyway, I got surrounded by these people, and I clearly saw in them something that I didn't have, and kept asking them, what do you have? And they would tell me, I follow Jesus. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Like what? Like, why does a dead guy from 2,000 years ago have any relevance to your life today? And I made fun of Christians. They kindly and they talked to me about what is the story of Jesus, who is Jesus, and encouraged me to study him. They're like, wait a minute, you're big on reading all these biographies and history books of all the greats in history, and you haven't read about Jesus? Well, Jesus is the guy that those guys studied. Like, why would you not study the source material? Why would you, why are you hearing about it secondhand? And I was like, no, that's pretty persuasive. And then look, I had a group of people, a mentor that I met that really took an interest in me and helped mentor me. And anyway, it just got invited in groups of people. And slowly God changed my heart. And I came to faith, and it's totally transformed my life. And so that's a big part of my story was realizing that I had to get everything. Like I deserve to be smited is how I would talk about it. Right. This is not how God would, like, by my human logic, like I was arrogant. I was self-centered, greedy. I mean, just all the things I felt in my 20s. Right. And just scarcity mentality, competitive, and I look at what God did for me, and God gave me everything I ever wanted and more for me to realize that wasn't the thing. And, I know that this is like a trope that rich people say when they get rich. It's like, oh, it's just not about the money. The reason why it's a trope is because it's true. And like, I honestly, if you look at the people as I've gotten to be, in circles of people with means, it's like, the average person, if it's all about them and all about their money and all about protecting, I mean, you get to be Smaug in the Lord of the Rings, right? The dragon who just sits on top of your gold and guards it. And like, it's a very small life. It's a lonely life. It's a life of being on the defense. And, man, I feel like that God called me into something so much more in such a beautiful way, and really gave me truly freedom to be able to certainly enjoy the things He's given us, but we're blessed to be a blessing. And so my wife and I, to kind of fast forward on that.
Yeah. How did things change? So you say like you climbed to the top of the mountain, you realize it's the wrong mountain, and that everything tastes gray. How did things change?
Yeah, I came to faith, and I was like, oh my gosh, like the peace that I've been seeking, the thing that I was trying to earn, it's like already given to me if I just surrender my life to Christ. And I remember when I did that, like everything went Technicolor. And it's not everything's in an instant, everything changes and everything doesn't change. Like I'm the same person. But my heart starts to change, and almost instantaneously my marriage starts to change. Not overnight. And by the way, we've had plenty of stumbles since, but sure. I would say we went from, talking about divorce pretty regularly to, being pretty deeply connected. And, we have a wonderful marriage today. I can't imagine, I'm so appreciative of my wife. I can't imagine doing this with anybody else. And one of the nice things about, we've been married 17 years is, there's certain things that you have to be in relationship for decades to be able to grow in depth. Yeah. And, I think that a lot of people see marriages from the outside, and it's like, oh, you've been married 17 years. Like that must be really boring. You know everything about them. It's like, man, no, like from the outside looking in, that may be the case. Inside of it, I mean, I tell you what, like I love my wife more today than I did 2 years ago. And I loved her more 2 years ago than I did 5 years ago. And
sure.
I look at what when I said I loved her when we got married, I don't even know what that means. But like everything in my life, like I've joked in the past, I've done podcast interviews, and I've joked that I'm the Forrest Gump of private equity. And I feel that way in just life in general, right? Like, all the good things, like I never wanted to have kids, because they were going to be impediment to my success. Like if your safety and security is in, having things and having success and winning awards, well, kids are an impediment to that. They take up time. They're expensive, for time and money and emotional energy and all those things. And so I never wanted to have kids. And we have 4 beautiful children. Our 4th is crazy. The story of how that happened. I mean, not exactly how it happened, but like the story of it is kind of wild. But anyway, we have 4 kids, and they range in ages from 11 to 2. And
congratulations.
It's wonderful. It's just wonderful. And so I look at it like it's my life is a picture of undeserved grace, is just the mercy of God and the gifts of God. And so now I'm just trying to steward what God gives me. And I think that's where, taking it back full circle to permanent equity, permanent equity hopefully is an expression. It's an imperfect expression, but it's an expression of how, I think it's a step towards, what does it look like to take the kingdom of God, the principles of God, and try to move them out into the world in a very tangible way? And again, imperfectly, and we've got our flaws like everyone else, but I think it's the model itself, I think maybe leads us to the better nature, better angels of our nature, I guess, to use a Lincoln quote, as opposed to, I think, the traditional, private equity model, regardless of the people operating that model, I think pull you towards short-termism, towards using people as a means and not the end. Anyway, so I think that's where
toward greed, and I mean, in many senses, it's sort of a model built on greed and levering businesses and then selling them quickly and making as much money as you can. You just said a little bit ago that your model is stewarding the gifts God's given you. What does that mean?
Well, okay, so if you think about it, the world says I own a bunch of stuff, right?
Yeah.
There's that famous sculpture of like the self-made man, right, where he's like carving his own, himself out of the block.
Yeah.
And if you just think about it, like none of us chose to be born at this time with these talents, right? To the families that we were born into, to the situations. And by the way, a lot of us have been born into tragedy and to difficulty. And I mean, that is the brokenness of the world. Like we are clearly, everyone, no matter what your faith background, no matter what you believe about God or exists or doesn't exist, or what you think is real, we all agree something is not right in this world. Like I don't think you don't meet anybody. Maybe there's like some 20-year-old at Yale who still believes that everyone. I don't know, but other than that guy, everyone I think would agree that something's broken, right? So we live in a broken world.
Yeah.
We didn't choose to be here. We didn't choose to be born into the time and the circumstances with the gifts that we're given. And by the way, the gifts is, a body that functions and a mind that can think, and we all have different strengths and weaknesses. And typically, the cool thing about how it works is the greater your strengths, the greater your weaknesses, right? It's like you pull up on this side and that side goes down, right? You can't. It's unmistakable, right? And so we're all given these gifts, and then so do I own the things? Did I somehow create myself? No, of course not. Right. And by the way, I'm in a society that, the roads were not built by me.
Yeah.
Right. The forests weren't planted by me. Like I live in an environment that is something I didn't create. And then the things that I say I own, right. Do I actually own them? Are they for my benefit? And I think this is where, really it flipped for me. I mean, I would say in my 20s, and the model that I had growing up was, you're the owner. You can do anything you want. Right. I remember I wouldn't call him a mentor, is a family friend of ours that was very wealthy. And I remember kind of getting an inside look at who he really was when I was growing up. And he said distinctly, it was something that he had like really tussled with somebody in the community. And he said, well, he who has the gold makes the rules. Like he who has the gold makes the rules. Like that is a certain way to live. And by the way, that's the default state of nature, like survival of the fittest, right? Yeah. If you have the power, if you have the authority, I mean, all there is power, right? Is what the sort of state of nature would say. And to survive, you've got to be fit. You've got to outcompete. And then Jesus comes along and completely flips that, right? Completely flips that. He says that, the meek shall inherit the earth. The meek shall inherit the earth, right? And so, as a steward, so the way I look at my life now is that God's given me all these things to steward, these gifts, right? I haven't earned it. And I can, by the way, I'm happy to actually go through and talk about it. It's crazy to say, is like the biggest things that have happened to permanent equity. I mean, sure, I participate in it, right? And there's effort on my part, and we are called to co-create with God, right? So it's not a matter of just like sit in the corner and wait for stuff to happen. I'm not saying that at all.
Sure.
But I am saying that if you look, it's all a gift. Like I deserve nothing. I didn't earn this body. I didn't earn this time period. I didn't earn the relationships. Like all these things are the gifts that have been given to me, and I get to co-labor with God, but I'm a steward of his resources. And so, what are we called to do? We're called to do what Jesus did. We're called to model our lives after Jesus. So which is he cast out, he raised up, and he healed people. Those are the three things Jesus did.
Yeah.
Right. And so what am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to cast out, I'm supposed to raise up, and I'm supposed to heal. Those are the things I'm supposed to do with the resources that God gives me. And so I can do that through the businesses, right? Business is a conduit of blessing. I mean, we are blessed to be a blessing. So we when it flows through us is when we are most at ease and most at peace. And the way I feel it, as soon as it terminates on us, as soon as we try to hold it tight and corral it, it ends up rotting, right? And that's the state of I would guess our modern society is how you could say it, right? It's all about you.
Yeah.
Help yourself, be you, be more of you. Man, I don't want to be more of me. I want to be more like Jesus. And so, so being a steward is just saying, hey, none of this is mine. Lord, how do you want me to use this? And we're told what to do with it. So it's just a matter of where are there opportunities? There's opportunities when you start looking, there's opportunities everywhere. And so just trying to see needs, see if I'm called into them, meet those needs. And that can be.
What does that mean for you? What does it look like for you to cast out, raise up, and heal?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think one, it's, and by the way, I'm an apprentice, right? So this is like, I'm still in the early stages. Like let's see, I'm about 11 years into my faith journey. So I'm still like, I'm not even a teenager yet in the kingdom. So what is it?
Not even a teenager.
Yeah. What does it mean for me? It means that, when I sit across somebody who's really angry with me and trying to take something from me in business, my reaction, my natural state is to bow up and to fight back and to crush them and outcompete them and use the power that I have to hurt them. And what Jesus would say is, justice is mine, vengeance is mine. You are called to love the other and serve the other. There's all this stuff about, if somebody asks you for your tunic, you give them your cloak as well. If it goes, ask them to walk a mile, you walk 2 miles, right? It's like, give them even more than what they ask for. Now that practically doesn't mean that if somebody comes and knocks on my door and says, give me all your money, like I'm calling the cops, right? Like that's not like that's a robbery. But what it does mean is that, there's a lot of times I've had the opportunity to hurt people with the power that I have, and they deserve to be hurt by worldly standards, right? I mean, they came at me, you get them back. And Jesus would say, lay it down. Don't do that. Let me take care of things. It means that maybe the guy who is wildly overreacting to something that you just, it's confusing why he would be that upset, is really just telling you I'm hurting and I need help. And so I've gotten into some great conversations with people where I'm like, hey, it seems like you're not okay. And like, let's put aside the current conflict. Like we can talk about that, but I think that's kind of like, maybe it's just the signal that there's something up. Like, will you tell me what's going on? Tell me how's home life? Tell me where are you? And by the way, I don't do this perfectly. I don't do this all the time. Sure. And I get pissed like everyone else. So like, just, but like but being able to just take a step back, right?
Yeah.
Being able to live open-handed. I mean, my wife and I have made the commitment to live a life of generosity. And so when we see needs and we feel called into those needs, we meet them. And that looks like a big chunk of what we are given, what we earn, quote unquote, what the world would say we make, what we pay taxes on. We give a pretty kind of crazy amount away.
And that doesn't always. That's 25% before taxes. You give away 25% before taxes.
Yeah, I was tempted to not put that in there. I hate that because I don't want to discourage anybody. We did not start at 25%. That's where we are now, and my hope is that that's the floor now, and the ceiling is much higher than that in the future. I've had some mentors that really changed my heart in this. The Green family, the Hobby Lobby family. I remember sitting across the table from David, who spent a ton of time. It was probably 7 years ago with a small group of us, and talking about how they've given it all away. 100% of the ownership of Hobby Lobby is in a trust that they don't control. They control, they don't own. And they give 50% away in cash every year of everything they earn. And anyway, so we're and by the way, it's not a competition. It's not like if you give 12 or 24 or 58 or whatever, that's not the point. The point is to live generously, to live open-handed and say, God, this is all yours. What do you want? And by the way, we still enjoy it. Like, I just got a new car and it's freaking awesome and I love it. But I enjoy it for what it is. I'm not trying to make it something it's not, right? My hope is not in my car. My hope is not in the image that car projects of me. My hope is in the Lord, and I'm trying to, as a steward of the resources, as a worker in the kingdom, I get to enjoy the fruits of the kingdom as well. And so, trying to, in Ecclesiastes, it talks about like we are given good gifts, and the Father enjoys. Like I enjoy giving good gifts to my children. Like I can't imagine if I was like, hey kids, let's go out for ice cream, and they were like, oh, ice cream, we're gonna like dump it on the floor because I don't even want that. That doesn't, eat the ice cream, right? Enjoy it. Yeah. Like I gave you the good gift. And anyway, we're trying to be generous and open-handed. We're trying to raise people's spirits. We're trying to, when we see darkness and evil, we're trying to cast it out. And when there's an opportunity to heal people and to be generous with the resources that we've been given, and resources being time, money, talent, relationships, those are all things that we're called to steward. We're trying to steward those well.
What is it like? What does healing look like in sort of real time?
Yeah, so I would say a lot of the healing that we're doing, we do everything anonymously, but we'll take people who we hear have suffered in some way, in illness, something debilitation, that they're lacking resources, and we'll just find a way to get them the resources anonymously. They don't know who we are. They don't know where it came from. We'll work with. We have a couple. So. I hate to say this because it's going to sound like kind of like, oh, you just give money to charity. We're not big on like indiscriminately giving to charity. Yeah. I think that the not-for-profit world is really messed up for the most part. Turns out it's run by humans. Who knew? And I think there's a lot of things that are said and done in the name of helping people that really are about building their own kingdom, not the kingdom of God, but building their own kingdom and sort of fighting over poor people. And I've seen it up close and it's ugly. And look, there's also a lot of people who have huge hearts that are pouring themselves out. I just have to be really careful. Like, just because you quote unquote give to charity or, give to a nonprofit doesn't mean maybe you're doing great work. What matters is like really understanding what's the work being done and who are the people and what's their heart behind it. So we have a number of ministries and charitable organizations that we try to be involved in. And so what does it look like to heal through those? It looks like, getting direct assistance to people that really need it. Every time there's a couple that we're very involved in, and every time I talk to the people on the ground doing the work, it's hard not to be moved to tears by the stories. And we just try to help people, try to show people that there's the world isn't survival of the fittest, that there are people who love and serve and care, and hopefully it infects them with the same. I mean, my hope is that in the same way that people showed me that love and that care, and that's what changed my life, that by loving and serving others, maybe they get to see the same thing. Maybe they get woken up. So
I want to switch over to business for a second, and to the model that permanent equity has in terms of ownership and duration of ownership. So as you said at the top, most private equity companies own for 3, maybe 5, 7 years and then sell. And obviously the intent is to make a great profit on the sale. You, on the other hand, own for a minimum of 27 years with the stated intent of owning forever. I'm wondering if you can talk about how that changes your relationship with the sellers and with your investors.
I wanted to correct you on one thing, and it's so easy. And by the way, this is not on you at all that you didn't know this. And part of this is the problem. I called the name of the firm Permanent Equity, so it's on me, right? Yeah. I would say our aspiration is not to be the permanent owner of a business. Our aspiration is to be the appropriate and best owner of the business we can be. So actually, we are right now in the process of potentially selling a couple companies. Oh, okay. And I don't know how much I can actually talk about it. I think I can talk a little bit about it, but we're selling what I would say for the right reason. So when I meet a seller, and I'll get this question from a seller. They'll say, "Well, are you ever going to sell my business?" I said, "Absolutely. I can't live forever. And by the way, all things come to an end. So at some point you have to sell." And they say, "Well, if you're going to sell, then why not just go with traditional private equity? It's the same thing." I'm like, "No, it's not the same thing." So we don't have the constraints where we have to sell. We're not a forced seller. Yeah. And when I say that to the seller's like I'm like, "Do you think there's something inherently wrong, like amoral about selling a business?" And he's like, "Well, I'm like, "You're selling the business. So are you doing something wrong?" Like, well, no, I mean, I'm not, no. Yeah, I agree. So it's like, okay, maybe we can just take a step back and say there are good reasons to sell and bad reasons to sell. A bad reason to sell is because the time clock, there's like a ticking time bomb under the desk that you work at. And the bomb goes off at a certain point. And it doesn't matter what the circumstances are. It doesn't matter the opportunity set. It doesn't matter the relationships. When the clock hits 0, you have to sell. And so to me, that's a really poor reason. In fact, if you talk to most private equity people who've been doing this for a long time and you ask them, what's the deal that got away? Or what's been the biggest failure in your career? They usually will not tell you it's the business that went to zero, that went bankrupt. That's actually not the thing they'll tell you. Sometimes they will. Those also hurt. But what they will tell you is, man, I had this business. It was incredible. Great relationship with the team. Everything was just kind of clicking and rolling. And man, we had to sell it. And the next guy and the guy after that and the guy after that, they all got rich and everyone had a great time. And we had to sell out way too early. And we knew the thing was going to go to the moon and we couldn't hold on. Yeah. That's not what we have to do. So what we say is we buy with no intention of selling the business, which is not, we intend to hold the business indefinitely. Now, we would love to own a business for 50 years. Let's see, I'm in my 40s, so I'd be in my 90s now if we bought a business. But I hope I get to do this for the rest of my life. Like I would love to own a business for 50 years. I also think that if you look at the big conglomerations that quote unquote never sell, if you talk to the people who actually run them, the not selling is kind of a marketing shtick. It simplifies the marketing message and it sounds really good on the surface. Mm-hmm. But when you dig underneath, if you never sell anything, there's a lot of things that need attention that you can't give to them. As you grow, you outgrow assets, you outgrow these relationships. And by the way, that would be another good reason to sell is somebody else is a better owner of the business. So what we want to do is we want to be as thoughtful towards the businesses and the people who run these businesses and our stakeholders in them. We want to be thoughtful towards them and say, look, if somebody else is a better owner than we are, I think we can do a pretty good job, but maybe there is somebody out there to be better. Then we want to make sure that they're able to be in those hands and not in ours. And so the two sale opportunities.
Interestingly different way of looking at it than the typical private equity exit after 3 years or 5 years. And that's,
again, it just comes back down to like, if we're not concerned, like I don't want permanent equity to be the biggest thing in the world. I'm not trying to build a massive conglomeration. Now, if it turns into something really big and that's what God's got for us, great. Like if it should be smaller than it is today, that's fine. What we're trying to do is we're just trying to live open-handed, right? We're trying to live with a sense of like, with the relationships we have, with the businesses that we own, we're trying to say, look, I don't know what the future is. All I can do is I can take the next step. I can try to treat people well, say sorry when I screw up, and just do the next right thing. I think it's really underrated. I think people, I talked to an entrepreneur the other day he's been successful, but he was asking me all kinds of questions about like, well, when this happens in 5 years or when this happens, or we're starting to think about this. And I said, man, I wouldn't do any of that if I were you. And he's like, what do you mean? You don't plan? And I was like, no, I don't really, not like that. Because like you just cross that bridge when you come to it. Like, I don't think you right now need to be worried about like what you're going to do if this or that, or these 5 things happen, or maybe you triple in size. Like just wait until you triple in size. Now, if you know it's coming, you obviously got to plan for it, but like, it's not clear that that's actually what's going to happen. And so I think we waste a lot of time kind of with the what ifs and we meet problems halfway that never come to us. And, these quotes are always misattributed and no one knows, Oscar Wilde's, I think the one who this is attributed to is like, I suffered a great many things in my life and some actually happened. Like that's always really stuck with me, And so anyway, I think that we're trying. So your base question was really great. Like how does it change our relationship? I think it changed everything. I think it changed everything about our investors. I think it changes the relationship with our leadership, with the employees. It allows us to have meaningful relationships, and that's going to look different, right? Different people want different things. What we try to say to people is, look, when we invest, we're not asking you like, hey, every weekend we get to hang out together. Like this is going to be the best thing ever. Like you got a new best friend, right? Yeah. That's not what we're saying. Look, like we enjoy the people we work with. We enjoy being around them. We like the game itself. We like playing the game, but like, we're not trying to be best friends with these people. Like we're trying to be professional. We're trying to be supportive, and we want them to go live great lives. Like I talk to people all the time and I say, look, my hope and aspiration is if you work with us, not only is work more fun, you do better in every sense, and your marriage is better, and your relationship with children's better, and you have better friendships. Like that's what we want, and we imperfectly do that a lot as well. And but that's what we're aiming for. So
So I want to step into one of the next things that your business has done, which is you run a couple of conferences a year, one called Capital Camp and the other called Main Street Summit. And I'm going to talk about them. But before I do, just a little bit of context. In my prior role at PricewaterhouseCoopers, I ran a conference called the Trust Leadership Institute. And we thought it was pretty great. And we held them in the world's most beautiful venues all across the country. And then I went to your conference, the Main Street Summit in Columbia, Missouri. And it blew my conference out of the water. It was deeply humbling. And I stayed in like the worst Airbnb I've ever stayed in my life intentionally because I wanted to save money. And it was still like, even without the accommodations, the content, what you created was something really special. I'm going to read just a quick excerpt and then I'm going to ask you about it. So at this conference that you hosted, and all I knew about you going into it was that you owned this company called Permanent Equity and that it was a private equity company. You get up on stage in front of a couple thousand folks and you say, there are a couple basic needs I want to talk about. The need to feel like you belong and the need to feel like you're important and you matter. And you do. You belong here, you're important, and you matter. And as we go through this conference, you said, well, we're going to say things like, hey, how are you? I'm fine. How are you? And where are you from? Oh, I'm from so-and-so. Where are you from? And you said, none of that matters. That won't be helpful to you at all as you leave. You said, instead, I encourage you to say, my name's Brent, and what I'm working on is this, and here's where I need your help. And Brent, the thing was, like, people walked away from that conference and told me as we all went to the airport or whatever, people said it was life-changing. And I will actually raise my hand and say it was life-changing for me too. And so I'm wondering, like, for you, where did you learn that kind of level of vulnerability and authenticity? Where did you learn that?
Yeah, I mean, I learned it, I think, through pain and suffering would be the short answer. I mean, it's been interesting. As you get older, and maybe it's just the season I'm in, but I've seen a lot of people blow up their lives, especially in the last like 4 or 5 years. And in order to blow up your life, you have to be unknown. Usually there's plenty of off ramps for the bad things that are going to happen in your life. Now, I'm not talking about people get cancer, all that stuff. I'm talking about like intentionally making really bad decisions that land you in jail, divorced, alone, those types of things. And the safeguard against that is to be known, like really known. And that's what we all want. We all want to be known and loved. If we're loved and not known, right? If people say, I love you and I respect you and all these things, and they don't really know you, it doesn't hit, it doesn't land. Like it hits the mask. They don't really know us. Like, and the thing that we even say in our head is, oh, but if you only knew. If you only knew who I really was, you wouldn't say those things. So we discount them, right? And so what we want to be is we want to be known and loved, and that's the safeguard against all the things that can really trip us up, especially middle age, right? I'm watching addiction issues pop up, affairs and all kinds of shenanigans, cutting corners and stealing and all kinds of things. And so I would say I've watched a lot of that. I felt those pulls in my life. I've been graciously gifted some really close male friendships that I didn't have even 5 years ago. It really kind of started maybe 6 years ago, 5 years ago, but really have matured. And I've got a group of guys that know everything about me, like literally almost everything. I don't say almost everything, pretty much everything. Yeah. And they're the guys I can go to when I say, hey, I'm tempted. Hey, I'm feeling this way. Hey, I'm feeling really down. I don't know what's going on. I don't understand what's happening to me, because we can't see ourselves clearly. And so my call to people at Main Street Summit and Capital Camp is just to be known. Like, I want to create a space where people can know one another. It's kind of odd to have that be maybe a business environment, and people are doing it at different levels, and it means some different things. But at least I wanted to introduce and say, hey, look, it's okay to stand up on stage in front of all these people, and I'll openly talk about my woundings and my shortcomings and failures, and not to be performative in it, not to do the failure porn thing, like, but that's a totally different thing. No. But to be genuine about it and say, look, like, I have temptations to perform and mask up like everyone else. And by the way, it creates anxiety, it creates fear in me, and it's contagious around me. And so what we want to do is lower those masks, just let people know who you really are. And so that's a great environment for me to do that. I mean, in many ways, I think that, so if you look at the life of Jesus, where does this idea for hospitality come from? Like, Jesus was called a drunkard. He was a friend of sinners. He was always eating and drinking. He was either like coming from a meal, going to a meal, or at a meal. Like literally, if you look at the Bible, I mean, every story about Jesus is basically him going from, coming to, or being at a meal. And so I think there's a reason for that. I think that, we're built to be in community. We're built to share with each other. And what a more beautiful picture of the kingdom of God than a meal, than a feast. And so what I try to do is I try to set the table, if you want to call it that, give people an opportunity and really be thoughtful towards them. I think hospitality is less about luxury and more just about thoughtfulness. I created an event that I would want to attend, and hopefully it attracts the right people and repels the wrong people. And we have people every year who come to it who hate it. I mean, you should see some of the reviews that now they're small. There's out of call it 1,500 people that came last year, I think we got probably like less than 20 absolutely scathing. You guys are awful, and anyway, they're actually way worse than that.
What do they say? What do they?
I mean, they just that like I don't know what all this touchy feely bullshit stuff that you guys are doing. Like, actually, we had one guy who was hilarious. He called it Brené Brown bullshit. That was actually his exact quote, which made me very happy. But no, I mean, look, and it's not if you come, it's not all like sitting around talking about feelings. I mean, it's hardcore business, investing, like it's real stuff. But it's also like be a human. You don't have to be a robot that does business. Like be a human that does business. And so for me, I want to do business. I think business is the greatest game on earth. I think it's amazing. Like I like to, it's incredible. I love what I do. I think I have the best job in the world, right? It's a conduit for blessing. It blesses me. It blesses others. Like it's amazing. And so do that, but be you. Like I have a distinct personality. Like I can't imagine having to work at, a big institution where I had to be like kind of, fit into this mold and keep my mouth shut and do this. I mean, I want to be with people, and I want to be myself, and I want people who are around me to be fully them, like fully human.
Yeah. So in your first 10 years of your company, which used up until the late 20-aughts, it went by the name Adventures or Adventure.us. I'm not sure how to pronounce it.
Well, that's actually the reason why we changed the name. But yeah, it was Adventures. But our URL and our logo was adventure.es because that was the hack domain. That's the shortest domain in the world for our name. But everyone kept asking us, is it adventurous? Adventurous? Like, are you a Spanish travel company? Like, what, anyway. And so we changed the name.
So you founded in 2007 and you're originally in Columbia, Missouri. As you have said in the past, you're not a traditional private equity company. And in your 2017 shareholder letter, so 10 years in, you talk about a turning point. And you say, essentially, through the years, we've experimented with imitation of others with little success and have learned the best path for us is to blaze our own trail. And then you go on to say, instead of hiding the fact that we're from Columbia, Missouri, we make it center to who we are. Instead of hiding the fact that our heritage in terms of sort of corporate training is outside of private equity and outside of the Ivy League, we just talk about who we are and we're human, like you just said. And then you wrote this just interesting line. You said, as you age, it becomes tiresome to pretend to be anything other than who you authentically are. And I wonder if you can just talk about that pivot point 10 years into the company's journey and the difference you saw once you decided to embrace the quirkiness of your company and the fact that you're located in the middle of the country versus the coast and the fact that you don't have Ivy League degrees and that kind of thing. What did that pivot do for y'all?
I mean, it's great. It's freedom. I mean, I think that the greatest freedom that we can have is just to be authentically who we are. And that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be molded and shaped into something better. That's not like a very modern idea of just be you, right? Be more you. Like, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, God gave us a design. We have a tendency to be herd animals, right? Like we like to be homogenized into the safety of the herd. And what it results in is we all listen to the same things and do the same things and say the same things and watch the same things. And I mean, I think that some of that is shared culture and commonality and community results in that. And I think it can be really powerful. But I think that a lot of my life, I was trying to pretend to be the things that I thought other people wanted me to be. And so I was constantly scanning the room saying, okay, who is that person? What do they like? How do I need to adjust myself to be them? And it's exhausting. It's a form of codependence. It's a form of hiding. And you're constantly trying to adjust and maneuver and manipulate in many ways.
Yeah.
And so, as I get older, it's like, man, I just want people I want to be, and I want people to be true. I just want the truth. And so if the truth is ugly, let's deal with it. If the truth is beautiful, we can admire it, right? And everything in between. But I think that what's really hard and what drives me crazy, partially because the things that drive us most crazy are the things that are true about us, right? Like somebody who's completely unlike you, who's acting crazy, doesn't really bother you. You're like, oh, that's weird. Whatever.
Definitely.
It's the people who are doing the things that you hate about yourself, that you know are flaws in yourself, that really drive you crazy. At least that's for me, what I found. Yeah. And so I just want to be me, and I want them to be them, and I want us to not to drop these masks that we wear. And I think part of it was, look, when you're insecure and you're trying to make it and all these things, like, what's the way you make it? It's like, try to look like somebody else, like try to talk like somebody else, try to be, musicians are always talking about who their influences were. If you go back and listen to their music, like early in their careers, it's like, oh, well, they sounded identical to so-and-so. And it's like, well, but you're not so-and-so. You're you. So develop your own sound. Now it can be influenced by the music of so-and-so and so-and-so, these people. And so, as I got more mature, it's like I had a lot of people that I admired, that I watched kind of how they operated, and I admired certain parts of their life and not other parts of their life. And it's like, okay, well, I don't want to be them. I want to maybe take that part of what their life was and that part of what their life was, but I want it to be me. And so, yeah, I'm from the Midwest. I'm from Missouri. I'm not a great dresser. I'm not a clothes guy. I don't really care about a lot of the fancy things. And I don't know. I'm just me. And I'm just trying to be me.
As a recovering pretentious asshat, I appreciate what you've just said, because that phrase is true for me. Recovering pretentious asshat, and every day I work on being less pretentious and less of an asshat, and just more hopefully on my best days.
That's good. You should do that.
Brent, I wonder if you could fast forward to the end of days. Folks are at your funeral. What are they saying about you?
I mean, I would just say he loved the Lord. He loved the Lord. He loved his family. He loved his friends, and he tried to serve the people that God put in front of him. I think that would be, and was faithful. I mean, I think what we all want is to be said, well done, my good and faithful servant, right? I mean, that's what I think. Even people who are atheists want that, right? I mean, we're all fighting for the approval of somebody. This whole idea of David Foster Wallace said, we don't get to choose if we worship. It's just what we worship. And, I want to, I certainly screwed up a lot in my life. I'm sure I'll continue to screw up a lot, but I hope that, at the end of my days, that, however soon that may come, that people say he was genuinely trying. He was trying to follow the Lord. He was trying to walk the ancient path. Well done, my good and faithful servant. I don't know.
How would that differ from 25-year-old Brent? Like you just said, you hope folks say he was faithful. He loved God. He loved his family, and he loved his friends. And he tried to make.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. What would 25? How is that different from 25-year-old Brent?
25-year-old Brent would have said he made a crazy amount of money and won all the awards, and everyone said that he was a great man. I would say I'm not trying to be a great man. I mean, if you look like the great men or women of history, we don't know them. We know things that they did, but I don't know George Washington. Yeah, I know his name, but who cares, right? We're all going to the same place. And I may know
grave, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and going to the grave, but also we're going to anonymity. And the history is very selectively written and very glossy. And I don't think that like I'm not trying to be known. I'm not trying to be somebody. I just want to do what I'm called into, and I want to be in great relationship, and I certainly want to make an impact. But I want to make an impact for God's glory, not for my glory. And so I think that may be the big shift. 25-year-old Brent, it was for my glory. I was trying to do everything for my glory because I was insecure and I was hurt and wounded. And I mean, I still am in some ways, but like trying to fill that hole of really existential dread. And I'm not okay. I may not be okay. I may not have enough. I'm not enough with more money and awards and pleasure and all the things you try to fill it with. And so, I think that a lot of that's shifted. I mean, again, still screw up and fall down all the time, but certainly like trying to move in the direction of, like I felt once you feel the love of God, like once the love of God touches your heart, it's the best thing. It's the best feeling that you can ever have. It's not. And look, as you become, I think the danger of becoming a more mature Christian is losing that, forgetting what it was like before. And I think that's where our hearts can become deadened. And even as people who are trying to follow Jesus, trying to follow the Lord, I think that we lose joy because we become, our expectations are that this is just always how things were. And you just forget, like we're very adaptable. And so even as, recently I had a dear friend of mine came in to visit me and we were talking about this topic, and it's like, man, like the more that we really acknowledge, like we deserve nothing and we've been given everything. And as long as we keep that front and center, I think we're on the right track. Right. I mean, God flows to the humble. What is the humble? I can tell you what the pride is not seeing ourselves how God sees us, both of the good and the bad. And so the humble is merely just having the eyesight of God, basically just seeing ourselves for who we really are, acknowledging who God is, who I am, what's the plot. Like I say all the time, I lose the plot. Yeah. Like, and I think that as long as we can just keep the plot, man, life is so much better.
So I'm wondering, and my last question for you is this, I'm wondering if you can kind of give a piece of advice, a word of advice maybe to someone who is where you were when you were in your mid-20s, working the system, playing the game really, really hard. And yet everything tastes like cotton. Like you said, everything tastes like gray cotton. What advice do you have for someone like that?
Yeah, what I would say is you're not alone. You're not the first person that's ever faced this. Go read some great books. This is basically the theme of all great literature. And you'll realize you're not alone. Everyone since the beginning of time has been climbing that same wrong mountain. And so give yourself some grace, and then try to figure out, okay, if the game you're playing is getting you a result you don't want, and if you're playing a stupid game and winning stupid prizes, then you should probably change the game you're playing. And the question is just, okay, well, what is the right game to play? And I think the right game is we can either operate out of fear or out of love. My guess is that if you're a dynamic, hard-charging, entrepreneurial type person, you're operating out of fear, again, because well-adjusted, normal humans do not do things like that. And so very good chance you're operating out of fear. And fear can only lead two places, to self-protection and self-promotion. That's it. Those are the only two places that fear can lead. And so you're going to do both of those in fear. You're going to make an ass of yourself, and everyone's going to be laughing at you, and you won't know it because you're so prideful and you're so puffing yourself up and saying, "Look at me, I'm the man." And like, no, you're just a man. You're just a person like everyone else. You are not perfect, and also you're going to protect yourself, and you're going to become lonely, and you're going to become isolated and hidden. And you're going to do bad things in the dark, and the darkness is going to grow. And that's the path. That's the path that leads to. And so the alternative path is to step into the light, to be fully known by others, to let people truly into your life and all your weaknesses and brokenness, and and try to move to love, right? And I mean, I don't think we can love with a love that we haven't received. And so for me, I mean, that answer was in the finished work of Jesus, and in the relationship with God. But I mean, look, you gotta explore that and find it for yourself. I would say same thing was said to me. If that sounds really dumb, like if whoever's listening to this is like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, believe me, I would have said the same thing. And I'll have to say the same thing to you that was told to me, which was like, well, you study the greats. All the greats studied Jesus. Why don't you study Jesus and make up mind for yourself? Just see where it leads.
Brent, thanks a million for your time. I appreciate it immensely. I've learned so much from you over the years and today as well. Today's no exception. And thank you for joining the podcast. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Jonathan, thank you so much for having me on. Appreciate you.